Hello everyone, I am The Warm, and I'm here for a 999 Zero Escape Epilogue. And we're just going to be here playing some music from the game. Let me turn that down just a bit. We're going to be talking about a few things today. I have a general outline here. In general, this whole epilogue should take somewhere between an hour and 2 hours. So that's what I'm aiming for. And we're going to be talking about the story, giving a recap and my thoughts about it. We're going to be doing a character tier list, and then we'll talk about future plans. And that's generally what I've got written down. I also have a during our story discussion, we'll probably have a brief tangent where we're going to talk about time travel a bit. I'll let you know when we get there in case you want to skip by it, because it's not precisely relevant to the rest of the story, but it's just the fact that 999 sort of brought it up made me interested to actually talk about it, because I don't think I've really talked about it to other people. And so if you're interested in that, you'll be able to hear it. If you're not, I'll clearly say when it's going to happen, so you can skip it. So let's actually, how do I want to do this? Sorry, I feel like it's taken some time for me to get this together. It's just I needed a block of time to do it, and I also needed to get my thoughts all together. And I think I finally got that down. I also have the game up, so if we need to go over anything specific, we can do that. Okay, so let's start. Should I start with the tier list here? No, I think we'll save that. I think we'll save that until after I talk about the actual story, and then we'll discuss the characters. So let's... So the story. In general, I liked it. It was I still never got... I believe one person at one point told me what time it's set in, but I don't believe I ever got that in-game. If we did, then I just missed it. It's basically a modern setting as far as I could tell. And we have our group of characters here. And they're kidnapped from wherever and forced into a sort of killing game. And, automatically that's good stuff for me. I've played the Danganronpa games and I've played other games like that. In various media, there's books, there's movies. It's a compelling sort of story already to have the killing game where you're stuck. So that's already a plus, just for that type of story. But then it goes kind of... It takes a bit of a turn in that the setting is quite unique. We have a cruise ship, which very quickly turns out to be a replica of the Titanic. And, we all know the story. It's revealed we were taken by Zero, and we have to escape, essentially, while trying to survive. And one thing I'm happy about, having played it now, is that I'm glad that we were able to escape with basically everyone alive, and that seems to have been by design. We'll get when we talk about the ending, we'll get there. But for most of the story, it's basically separated into the escape rooms and then the in-between segments. So I guess we could talk about the escape rooms first. I mean, quite a few of them were a bit, not quite a few of them. Just a few of them were a bit awkward because this was originally a DS game, and so they did not translate perfectly to PC, which is what I'm playing on. But honestly, none of them were too difficult, and I was never held up for an extremely long period of time. The only time it happened was when it was like the captain's quarters, I think, and that was just because I miscounted by one, and that threw me off basically for half an hour or so, which was annoying, but, beyond that, it was all right. And, there were quite a few different... You could actually learn a thing or two doing this. I didn't know anything about hexadecimal before playing this, but now I know. I certainly do now know what hexadecimal is, which is something. And so overall, the escape rooms were okay. I enjoyed them on the most part. And I'm curious to see... we have 2 games after this to get through. I'm curious if the escape rooms are going to basically be the same, or if they're going to... Basically, I'm wondering if the formula is going to stay the same, where we have the story beats between the escape rooms and then the escape rooms themselves. I would imagine so. I mean, it seemed like a fine formula. Then, of course, we have the actual story that occurs between the escape rooms. And then there are some story moments that happen within the escape rooms that are conditional. We'll get to that. And in those, I'd say in the story moments, where we're having the discussion between all the characters, those were probably my favorite moments of the game. It was basically because you could, you're with all these strangers. You don't know what everyone's motivations are other than trying to get out. And especially when we come to the conclusion that Zero is one of us, it gets that it's just another layer where you're trying to figure out who's who. We know that there are different connections between people. What are they trying to do with this game? And they even tried to foment... Certain characters would foment suspicion between us, like Santa would. Ace would at times. But yeah, those moments where I'm trying to figure out, what are these people saying? Are they telling the truth? Are they lying? What's the motivation? All of that stuff was definitely the highlight for me. And yeah, those two different gameplay of the escape room and the story beats, obviously the story was my favorite. But of course, we have to talk about the choice system, because we have this whole we'll go back in here for a second. Nope.
Ow, Scott!
Nope.
Damn it!
Sorry, Junpei.
What the hell?
I didn't mean to do that to you, buddy. Okay.
Wait, it stopped?
Yeah, here we go. Okay. Let me find you. Move you up here. Okay. No, dang it. Okay. So yeah, we get this flow chart here. And this is the beyond the escape rooms, beyond the general story beats that happen in between. This is the big part of the game. It's making different decisions, going down different paths, seeing what's different. And, you know, honestly, I don't think I've played enough of this kind of thing to be able to judge whether 999 did it better or worse than others, you know? Because I'm trying to think back to other visual novels I played. And, you know, I don't want to spoil them, so I'm not going to mention them by name. But, at least in the ones I've played, there have been a couple, but most of the ones I've played haven't been like this. It's where it's pretty much just a single story, and if there are decisions, they're not huge divergences like this. But I do think it was good. One of the big things for me was sort of realizing what these keys meant. And going back through, and it was so funny when it clicked. They seemed so mysterious for quite some time until they finally clicked, oh, we'll just follow the white path and you get that. But for a while, they were very mysterious, and it was fun trying to understand what was causing what. Of course, it turned out to be very simple. It was just make a certain decision. But the process of finding that out was what was fun for me. What else to say about this? So, I guess talking about the actual story for a bit. As I've said, I liked it. I will get to the characters later. So, in terms of actual story, it seems crazy, just, you know, implausible and crazy, but understanding what a crazy guy Ace is now, and that he devoted all the time and money to the experiments it makes sense that, you know, we have this whole, you know, it's the boat, it's all the you know, just the massive amount of resources devoted to this. It seems crazy at first, but now that we know how big this, we definitely needed that background that his company was extremely good, and he was rolling in dough essentially, because otherwise this whole situation seems hard to justify. But in the end, I think it makes sense, you know. Especially, I really liked that the whole story, it turns out we were actually in the building in Nevada. That was a fun little twist at the end for me. Because I don't think I'd ever considered it throughout the whole playthrough. Even though I probably should have, when I learned that the kids in the original experiment went through the same thing, including the ship starting to sink. So I should have realized at that point that, yeah, the ship probably sank. So what happened after that, and how are we now on that ship? But yeah, still fun. Some of these moments, yes, especially like these first few endings, wondering like who killed Lotus, or, you know, who did what to whom, all that sort of thing. That was all fun. Bad end axe. Yeah. So I think we've had to in the comments, we've had discussions on, you know, choices in video games. I do think I do like choices where there's actual big story changes. It's just you have to flesh it out, and you have to, you know, devote a lot of time to each of them, which is very difficult to do, but I think this game does it pretty well. And of course, just all the psychic stuff, you know. Obviously, in this world, the morphogenic field telepathy, all that sort of stuff is real. You know, you just got to kind of accept that. And when you do, it's a kind of a nice payoff when it actually, when we get to here and it actually works. I did enjoy that, definitely. Even the stuff about Alice, when it was revealed at the very end that she was actually alive. I still don't know how that works. I'm curious why Ace was so sure she wasn't alive. Obviously, he got the boat and the coffin. Well, I guess since we were in the building in Nevada, the coffin we saw may not have been the original. Maybe she was on the one in the boat, and it's just because, But where did she come from? Now, here's the thing. Is that going to be that ending where we saw Alice? Is that like a one-off thing? Or is she going to be in the game going forward? Because our group ran into her. So that's going to be something, I guess. Now, I have seen, whenever you start up this game on the PC, you get it's actually 2 games. It's Zero Escape and the sequel, I believe. And whenever you start it up, you see the cast of the games. And so you see, just on the startup menu, on the left, on the left you see Zero Escape, and on the right you see whatever the sequel is. And you see 2 different casts of characters. So I will be very curious to see if our cast in this game actually pop back up. I don't know if it's going to be an entirely different story, a continuation. I don't know what to expect yet, so that's kind of exciting. So the whole thing with Alice at the end, that could just be a joke, And then if they want to reset and tell a different story, they can, I suppose. The whole stuff about Zero, I think, ended pretty well. We did learn that this whole scenario was concocted by Akane, Santa, and possibly Seven for the purposes of getting revenge on the planners. And I kind of like that. I've thought about it in the time since then, and I think I like how this went. Part of it that doesn't make sense to me, if anyone knows about this, you could let me know. It makes sense, part of it makes sense if Seven was in on it, and he just was basically faking his amnesia. I get that. That makes some sense. But what I don't get is how is Snake in on it too? That's my question. Because Snake went with Santa and Seven to go see Akane when they were kids, in the incinerator. And supposedly Akane was able to beat the machine because she had her psychic connection with Junpei in the future. And then the door opened and they saw each other. Now, obviously, Santa and Seven are in on it, so it makes sense. But what about Snake? He's blind, yes. But surely he would have heard everything that happened after that, because the door opened, she saw Santa and Seven and was speaking, and so if you could tell me that, I would appreciate knowing how that makes sense. Because I guess we're diving a bit into the time travel stuff. Because what I think this is, with time travel, you could either get multiple timelines or you can get a single timeline. Okay? And for me, I think 999 is just essentially a single timeline. You know, we have this tree here, but I think it's actually just a single timeline. What we get, and I believe that this is said by Akane, is we get potential futures. So what I think is it's all just a single timeline. So I think it all basically loops back around in on itself, which for me as a time travel story, I think I prefer it to the multiple timelines, but we'll get into that. I'm not officially starting the timeline tangent yet. So yeah, if someone wants to explain that to me, I would appreciate it, because I don't know if it's a plot hole or what, because I feel like Snake had to have been there. I guess it doesn't have to be if Snake is in on it. Although that would be kind of funny, because then I think the only people that wouldn't be in on this would be Junpei, Lotus, and the planners, essentially, if Snake was in on it too. Because Clover then, by extension. But I kind of doubt Clover and Snake are in on this. Yeah. Yeah, so I think, I'm not sure if I said this, but basically the whole thing is this was all planned out by those three, at least. Akane, Sananta, and Seven. Get revenge on the planners. And in that sense, one of the things we learned at the end is that we probably didn't have any bombs in us, which was pretty crazy to realize. I think only the planners probably had them installed. But even then, Santa may have wanted revenge, but I think for Akane, a big part of this was essentially just recreating the future that she saw, you know, to close the loop, to ensure that she would survive in the past. But she also very much liked Junpei, so I'm sure that was part of it. Yeah. Okay, do I want to start time travel talk now? I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Overall, I enjoyed the story, is my main point. And luckily, it doesn't appear that there are any glaring mistakes. Never saw this, but I don't think that's that important. It just goes to Yellow Submarine ending. Which is curious, considering we were, in fact, in the building in Nevada. So I'm not sure where that sub went to, but I guess if you're trying to recreate the ship exactly as possible, and there was a submarine on the ship, then you put a submarine in the building. Oops. Let's see here. Okay, I think I can begin the time travel tangent here, and I'll loop it back around to. I'll make sure to. It is going to be mostly about general time travel stuff, but I'm going to make sure to bring up 999 and how it relates to it, at least for me. And this might be a bit ranty, or, you know, it's a tangent. It's the timeline tangent. So if you're not interested, you could probably skip ahead a little bit. I don't know how long that'll take. You know what I should do? I should learn how to do... I don't know when this was, but you know YouTube, on certain videos I've been seeing people put like breaks on the... What would it be? Are they chapters or something on their videos where you're able to view and skip different parts of the video? Like they're named on the... when you scroll through like the bottom of a video. I don't know how to describe it. I have no idea how people do that. I should find out, because that would be very helpful in this case, because then people would be able to just very quickly see how long this tangent will be and skip ahead. I may do some research into that. If you know how to do that, you could let me know. I would appreciate it. Anyway, let's talk about this. And I'm not the most well-read or researched or anything about time travel, so, I'm sure there are plenty of other people that have done the in-depth talks about this sort of thing much better than I could ever do. But I'll try, just to give my opinion. Basically, my thought process on timelines, or my general view of time travel stories are, I don't really like them. And then there are two directions where my dislike comes from. For one, I do think they're kind of harder to get right. I think it's easy to mess up if you're not careful. And that's just it depends on what kind of time travel story you're talking about. Again, if there's a single timeline or if it's a multiple timeline sort of thing. If it's a single timeline sort of thing, I feel like you could mess that up pretty easily if you're not careful. And the other thing, so that's one reason. I think it's easy to not get right. The second direction my dislike comes from is I usually don't like the implications that arise out of a time travel story. And this is where this gets probably somewhat ranty or nonsensical. How do I explain this? So imagine a scenario. Let's say, and this happens more in the multiple timeline time travel stories. Like, say there's timeline A, and a character goes from timeline A, and they go back in time. But really, they've gone back to timeline B, or through their actions, they create a timeline B or something. And, it's funny, because there's a few stories that are just in my mind that I know about, but they would be really heavy spoilers to say, so I'm not mentioning them at all. But it's difficult to try and think of one yourself. Okay, here's just a crazy example. Say a time traveler goes back in time, where your parents were, let's say, and again, this might sound like the ramblings of a madman. We'll see. Say the time traveler, unrelated to you, just bumps into your parents or something, and it delays them by a few seconds. This is the whole butterfly effect thing. It's so cliched, but it's also very true, right? So your parents get delayed by a few seconds because they ran into a time traveler. Maybe they just had a conversation or something. Who knows? Whatever. Time traveler leaves or whatever. It doesn't even have a big effect. But because they were a few minutes later than they were, then, and again, I'm not sure if this is too crude an example, but when a person's conceived, it's the egg cell and the sperm cell. Say there's it's a different sperm cell this time, or just something like that. Now, the person that would be born from that is probably very similar to you. Genetically they'd be like a brother or sister, whichever. But it wouldn't be you. It'd be someone slightly different. And so from that point, that's the butterfly effect there. So then it's a different person who's slightly different, who makes slightly different choices, and then it cascades into where, You know, it should be an entirely different reality at eventually. It wouldn't be very different for a while, but it would. I feel like it would eventually get there. But the reason why I gave that example is because, so at least in that timeline, you wouldn't exist. You know, you'd be deleted. Well, you would never come to be. That's the thing. And so for me, whenever time travel enters into a story in any way, I get nervous because the consequences are now extremely grave. There was a time travel movie I saw. I think it may have been called The Butterfly Effect or something many years ago. But as the name suggests, they do something where, I'm not going to describe it exactly what happens, but he ends up, these characters go back in time and they step on a butterfly, you know, butterfly effect. No duh. And then they go back into the future, and it's horrific consequences, catastrophe, world gone mad. I won't describe it exactly, but I think I saw that when I was pretty young. So maybe that just colored how I view all time travel stories, but it just, the fact that I get the sense that whenever there's a time travel story, reality is at stake. Like, the stakes are immediately raised for me. And I get nervous. Because yeah, you make any change at all, and it's potentially world-ending catastrophe, is what it feels like to me. So let's relate it back to 999 for a bit. I was really worried when we first got the hints that there was some time shenanigans going on, that we were making we were splitting the timeline and making a new reality or something. And I didn't like that. Because, well, how do I say this? Well, because it wouldn't make sense. Because I thought it was a fact that Akane died because of what Seven said. Now we know that's probably not the case, but I thought it was a fact that Akane died. So how could it be, if Akane died, could she have reached out to Junpei and then survived? You know, it didn't make sense to me at the time. But with the revelation that Seven was probably in on it and told a lie about that, it all makes sense now. She never died. She lived, and that's how she was able to come back and set everything up so that history played out how she saw in her vision. So that's all good. There's no conflict there. There's no splitting of timelines. There's no mistake in the plot. So that's all good. And it's not even really time travel, because no one's traveling through time. Instead, it's something that's been in lots of fantasy and sci-fi. It's a character who, you know, power of prophecy or visions or something, and they're able to see into the future and try and bring about the future that they see, or they could see. And that's the explanation for all these other endings. It's not that they're other realities. It's Akane seeing other potential futures, and she obviously tries to bring about the one that allowed her to survive. So yeah, that's all good. I probably didn't really make much sense there. Basically, anytime there's a time travel story, it's never like a happy or fun story for me. It immediately makes me start stressing out. Because any potential change could have world-ending consequences or not even, it doesn't even have to be world ending, just the idea that, you know, people's lives can be utterly ruined or erased through little to no effort. Just it stresses me out. I don't like it. So a couple of people by now have mentioned Steins Gate. I know a bit about Steins Gate. I really just know it's a visual novel about time travel. And I've seen some of the artwork, or at least the characters. So I know there's like a scientist guy. But I don't really know the particulars. I would assume if it's a time travel story, then it's it's probably a multiple timeline story. I would think. Because if it were just a single timeline, then it would all have to loop back in on itself, which I guess it could be. I don't know. I actually don't know enough to say. But I just feel like I'd be stressed out the entire time I played it, you know? Now, maybe you guys... if there's anyone here who actually listened to that ramble and think I'm talking crazy and can... if you want to go to bat for Steins Gate, I guess you can. But it's just... I don't know how I would get over that hang-up of getting stressed out just knowing it's a time travel story, you know? It's just, I feel like I'd be spending the whole time just... what would you say? Just being tense and not being able to relax, or... And, you know, I don't mean to, like, I wasn't fully relaxing every time I played these games, but I felt like I understood what the stakes were and things like that. I don't know. If you could, if there's people out there that want to say, hey, you're crazy, here's why time travel stories aren't that big a deal, and Steins Gate is actually really good, you should read it, then fair enough. You can say that. You could try and knock some sense into me. I would be fine with that. I just don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think I explained myself very well here. I was trying to think of a way to talk about this, and I thought I did, but I thought I had a way to, but I don't think that translated to here. I should probably have made a better outline. Well, maybe I'll think of more later, but let's move on for now. Let's get into something more fun. Let's actually do the tier list now. Have a drink first. So, 999 characters. Pretty small cast, all things considered, but I think that was pretty good because we got to flesh them out quite a bit. Just a simple ranking here. Top would be probably just my favorites. S here. A are characters I just enjoyed. I really liked. B would just be generally okay. I didn't like them too much, but there wasn't anything that negative either. C is meh, kinda is the term that comes to mind. And D is just I didn't like. So this is just a random tier list I found just by searching Google. It's so simple enough. I will put Junpei first. And I will put him, I think, in S. So he's our main character. He's who we see. He's the eyes we see into the world. And I enjoyed it, honestly. He has this sort of just average Joe kind of character going on, which, I don't know, some people might not like, but I kind of enjoyed it. Because I found for the most part, I found his actions and words understandable. The whole Yellow Submarine ending, the things he does are pretty crazy. So I don't really relate to him when he does that, like when he tricks people. But he does show that he's kind of clever, which I do like. You know, he's an average Joe, but he's not. But he's also a bit clever. We have Zero and Akane here. I guess we can split this by saying Zero is sort of the persona of Zero that we interact throughout the game. Well, Akane is basically before the end we realize she's Zero. You know, the Akane we spend the most time with, I guess, is what this represents. I'm gonna start with putting her here because I did like her. Speaking of things I'm not sure about, I wasn't sure about the whole wouldn't Snake be in on it thing, because he was there at the incinerator. So if people want to tell me what that was all about, that's one thing. Here's another question I have: why and how did Akane disappear during a couple of the endings? So, like, at the end of the ending where we get the yellow key, you know, we have that scene where Junpei and Akane are in the room together, and then, like, a door opens, and so Junpei investigates, and when he turns around, Akane's just gone. And then we hear Zero over the intercom. And we know Zero's now Akane. So, what's the deal there? How did she get out? I mean, the only way out of that room was the door Junpei went to. I mean, she is Zero, so I don't know, maybe she has a weird override thing that lets her go through one of the 9 doors. But other than that, I don't see how that would have worked. And yet she's also on the intercom somehow. But I guess the intercom we got... I guess we learned that it had to be recordings, right? Because Akane was with us the whole time. So I guess that's all right. The fact that it's a recording. It's more just her disappearing act I'm not sure about. In any case, Akane, I did like her for most of the game. Provided a decent motivation for Junpei for most of his actions, really. But it's definitely the fact that she's Zero that makes her more interesting, because she did come off a bit as a damsel in distress sort of thing, I guess. That's probably not the proper use of that phrase. But that her being a mastermind, I actually do like. So I guess to continue on with that, Zero, the sort of Persona Zero, just sort of okay, I guess. In terms of killing room villains, you know, like he doesn't really hold up against, say, Monokuma or something like that. If you've played the Danganronpa games, you know, there's a villain right there. And, you know, so we didn't have Zero taunting us throughout the game. And I don't know, just as a villainous persona, the whole Zero thing didn't really do much for me. It was more Akane. After we learning who Zero was, that made Akane more interesting. But yeah, and thinking Zero was one of these people was more interesting. But just the persona, it just didn't, just kind of, I guess I'll put it here then, because this is more just meh. Didn't really excite me all that much. Although I did like my idea that there were two Zeros. That was interesting. It turned out there was only one, but there were two assistants. Probably two assistants. Yeah, what was up with all that, like, the robes and the symbols? I wonder if those are alchemical or astrological symbols, too. Because they never got explained. The ones that Zero had, those symbols, we never got to an explanation for that. Like, where'd you get those weird cult robes, Akane, when you were Zero? What's up with that? Let's move on. Santa. Oh, and I'm saying this. I should have clarified this at first. This tier list, this is not like an objective. These people are well written or not, or poorly written. This is just my enjoyment of the character throughout the game. Okay, so this is my opinion, sort of that sort of thing. Santa, I'm between A and B here. I'll set him there for now. Considering I thought he was Zero for quite a while, I did enjoy his. Well, his kind of crazy attitude, you know, the stuff with he did seem kind of. It seemed almost a bit silly at times, the sort of speeches he was saying. You know, it's like he was saying villain speeches, but he was what would it be? A foil for Junpei? Is that the proper term? Well, more just he'd be someone who'd push back against us. And in that, I kind of enjoyed that. And I was always trying to figure out what made him tick. And finding out that like that moment where he had been always in the same room, that was pretty crazy. That was a good reveal. So I'd say I'd like him. Yeah. I'll put 7 up here too. Just always, he was pretty funny. He was comic relief a good portion of the time. But he was also, you know, learning his background and everything. And I think just the idea that he was in on it with these two, that kind of elevates it a bit. That he was doing this whole thing to help them get revenge. Not even revenge, just to save her in the past. You know, it's basically being the future that ensured the past. I like it. Overall, he was just a sort of just fun guy to be around, and yeah, I liked him. Ninth Man is just sort of meh. I mean, we learned he was a sacrificial lamb for... You know what? We don't have that many characters. Let's delete that row. Let's just do that. I think that's a bit better. Yeah. Just... I mean, I get it. I get what he's supposed to be and what his purpose was. It's just, you know, looking at him here, it's just hard to... No emotion has emerged from thinking about him. It's just, it is what it is. Lotus is a tricky one. I like Lotus, but really, she just sort of got wrapped up in all this through no fault of her own, you know. She's not Junpei, so she's not the one who connects with Akane in the past, and she only had her kids only. She had her kid, was it one kid or two kids? It was at least one of her kids taken. No, it was two, because the other daughter had to be in the building in Nevada. So, you know, that sucks. But then she gets pulled into this basically because I assume she was seen by Akane in the past. So they got her for this. I did like that she was pretty headstrong, forthright, knowledgeable. I am curious about one thing. If anyone wants to let me know about this, why... I thought this would be addressed. I thought it would be something like, hey, Lotus, why are you wearing what you're wearing? And, you know, maybe she was at a costume party and then got kidnapped right after or something. I thought they would just address it, but they never do. Is there an explanation for that, or is this just how she dresses normally? I think her name, was it Kurashiki or something like that? So I assume she's Japanese. I mean, what's the deal there? I mean, it's not important. It's just, I'm curious. Because out of everyone here, she's the one dressed most strangely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's... Again, I don't know how connected the games are, so maybe it's answered in another game? Probably not, but... I mean, if there's a reason, and I missed it, let me know. But I don't think I missed it, so... I liked Clover. I did think the whole axe murder bit... I mean, I got it. I'm not sure I liked it, though. But she was kind of fun just to see, like, her interactions with Seven. And how she got friendly with Junpei, so that was fun. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say about her. I don't think she was in on the whole thing or anything like that. Loyal to her brother, of course. That's all good. Speaking of, Snake's a toughie. I think I'm going to start with him there. And it's mostly because... Well, it's partly because we really didn't spend much time with him You know, he spent most of his time in the coffin, it felt like. And when we were with him, he seemed a bit, you know, I mean, he didn't flaunt it, but he seemed a bit of a know-it-all at times. But I mean, he could back it up, you know, so that's not too big a deal. I did especially enjoy his reunion with Clover. That was all good. His scene in the incinerator with Ace, where he took a bunch of bullets. In the moment, it was kind of alright, but in retrospect, it felt a bit dragged out to me. But I don't think he was terrible or anything. Yeah, I liked him more than I didn't. It's just, I think I liked these four more, is what I'm saying. And finally, Ace. Oh, this one's kind of hard. I'm gonna put him there, because here's the thing. I liked Ace when he was with us, when we were going around the game just regularly. It's only when he's revealed to be the culprit, and then he flips a switch, and now he's suddenly psycho murderer who enjoys killing and causing pain and is evil, you know, like. And then seeing him in the flashbacks, like, you know, when he was in the incinerator pulling Akane in, he's just like maniacally evil, you know. And then at the end, the reason he gave was, oh, I just wanted to see faces. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure you really were excited to see some dead kids. It's just, I don't know. It just, he seemed pretty cool early on in the game. But then, as a villain, he just kind of, I don't know. The prosopagnosia stuff was pretty okay. I did like that as an explanation for, you know, the mistake with Snake. But I don't know. So if it's Snake pre-villain reveal, he'd probably be here. Post-villain reveal, probably down here. And I think that's it, really. I think I'm pretty comfortable with this. Yeah. So Junpei's the favorite. I think that's fine. Akane, pretty dang good. Akane could honestly kind of go up here a bit. I did enjoy early on in the game talking about when she gave the stories about astrology and the Titanic and all that sort of stuff. And then the Egyptian mummy, and then it turns out those were actually real. That was kind of fun. You know what? In honor of her master plan and all that stuff, and it actually working, I'll raise her to S as well. There we go. We have a nice bell curve here. I'll take it. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's pretty much it for that. There's not much... What else to say? Future plans. Probably going to talk about... I think for now, we're going to continue with the 999 series. It's been fun to do, so I think I'll just keep doing that. Apologies for... I think it's taken a few days for me to get this out. It's just... I don't know. It's been tough to get my mind wrapped around 999 in a while. I know that's probably not a good excuse, but there were a few times I sat down to do it, but I didn't really have the... I felt like I didn't have the wherewithal to just sit and do it until now. Finally, I had the motivation and time to actually do it, so here I am. However, doing this has made me realize I need to structure it out a bit more. I've done a few epilogues now, and they're kind of meandering, rambly. So that's something for future plans. I want to figure out the chapter thing on YouTube videos, and I need to structure these out a bit better. Yeah. And we'll be continuing 999. But that, I also might wait a few days to start that as well. I'm doing Raging Loop right now, and that's going pretty well. It's funny, I've noticed, I'm not sure how YouTube algorithm, works. But I've noticed, how you name certain videos seem to actually change things like view numbers, which is pretty fascinating. Not in any major way, mind you. It's just something I've noticed, which is pretty funny. So I think it's something to consider going forward. If anyone out here has any recommendations or ideas for me to want to try, if you've made it this far and are still listening, I'd appreciate it. Again, if there's anyone who wants to go to bat for Steins Gate, I'm open to hear your argument, but I'm not sure I'll do it. Also, apologies for that time travel tangent. I don't think I managed to phrase it very well. It's just yeah, I'll just stop talking. Yeah, I think that's it. Made it over an hour. Yeah, so that was that. Yeah. I don't think there's anything else. If I've ever missed anything, you can let me know, but I don't think I did. Overall, I summed it up at the end of the game. Happy to have played this one. Excited to see where it goes from here. Yeah. So let's end it, shall we? I've been The Worm. This has been 999. Zero Escape. Hope to see you next time for some more 999, but actually, let me check. What is the next one called, actually? It is called Virtue's Last Reward. Okay. So I guess we'll look at that. Again, it probably won't be immediately. I need to open the game up, set some stuff up, and have a good amount of time where I can just begin recording a few of them at once. But in any case, I hope you're all right. And I hope to see you next time. I've been The Worm, and stay well.